So you know how Donald Trump has promised MAGA he's going to bring back all of these factory jobs and we're all going to be rich, right? You know that? There's a new article here in the Wall Street Journal, which I want to go over with you, and it's all about these, I guess you could call them high-tech factories. Another phrase you could use is Trump industrial parks. That's a new one. Again, it's Trump industrial parks, and the idea is we're going to build these on federal lands, and theoretically, money coming in from Japan in this particular situation, could be other countries, theoretically is going to be done. This particular one is going to focus on SoftBank and Masayoshi-san as they're trying to ham out details to build these Trump-branded parks, I guess, Trump industrial parks. I want to go over this. We have a lot of people in the community who are in the tech industry and interested in this stuff, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I have a lot of thoughts on this stuff. But every time we get more details, because I think they may actually build some of these things, maybe not to the scale that Trump is promising, but you never know, and that's why we're looking at it. So it says here, the facilities would be built largely on federal land, all right? And I have real concerns about the whole federal land issue where, you know, environmental concerns, energy concerns, water concerns, all sorts of things. Using funds pledged, so no money yet, but pledged, by the Japanese government as part of a recent trade deal, okay? And would produce components for artificial intelligence infrastructure, so the data center stuff, right, AI. According to people familiar with discussions, the funds could begin flowing as soon as early 2026. So no money yet. This is all just being talked about. President Trump has signaled that he supports Sun's plan in concept, according to people familiar with the matter, and discussions between SoftBank and the administration are continuing. And then if you remember SoftBank, they made a big announcement with Trump and OpenAI, and they were calling these things Stargate. Now, I guess that's what the new thing is Trump Industrial Park. I hadn't heard that one, so maybe we've changed from Stargate. Trump just wants his name on it. Quote, President Trump's relationships with business leaders across industries and geographies are playing a key role in securing the trillions in investments that are helping build America's next golden age. So I would disregard the trillions thing. There may be some money coming in. I think that might be true, but I wouldn't necessarily put it in the trillions category. Details are in flux, as it says, but current plans call for SoftBank to help facilitate the construction of factory clusters. So we're calling this factory clusters, cranking out fiber optic cable, data center equipment, and ultimately AI chips. So these are the things that we could theoretically be making. So cable, data center equipment, and then AI chips. Japanese tech companies would supply much of the expertise behind the new ventures, while the facilities would be owned by the federal government once built. And this sort of questionable ownership structure and stuff like that, I'll just say this. When the Trump people were trying to negotiate something earlier with Korea, basic gist of it was that Trump wanted 90% of the profits, and then be it Japan, be it Korea, or wherever, would only get 10% of the profits. And like, it was widely reported in the Korean news. I think it was a similar structure in Japan, and it's ludicrous. So how do you do business with someone who wants to take all the profits? Like, hey, you do all the investment and you bring your expertise and we take all the profits. That doesn't make sense, right? I laugh at this stuff because, I mean, you never know. Like I said, they might get something built, and this is why we're going over it. The effort, which still faces obstacles, is getting off the drawing board. Okay, so I guess they're moving forward. Is quintessential Sun, the creature of the boom-bust cycle of the Silicon Valley, known for taking big swings when the market gets hot. Many have paid off with billions of dollars in profits, including early bets on Yahoo, Alibaba, and the chip company ARM, while others have led to costly black eyes, such as WeWork. And WeWork was a big failure for them. But yeah, Alibaba, Yahoo, ARM were all big wins. Nothing's guaranteed in this life, though, of course. What else we got? Sun has been predicting for years that SoftBank would be the forefront of the imminent revolution in AI and robotics, but it missed out in the early years, and so I guess now it's trying to catch up, and it's been investing more in OpenAI. And the other thing with them is they've been selling off a lot of stock lately, and they've been talking about AI. So I think I knew they sell off a bunch of NVIDIA stock. I think it was all of it. And then there was another one yesterday that they were mentioning they sold off a whole bunch. So maybe it is for this stuff to go into these Trumpy factory things. And I think, if they can get a cheap land, essentially, if Trump can say, hey, I'll give you a free land with the federal government. And it's not really, free per se, because, it is federal land. But the ownership structure is so strange to me. This is also new to me. I hadn't heard this one either. Known as Project Crystal Land. So we have two things. One is the Trump industrial parks, and now this other thing, Project Crystal Land. Inside SoftBank, Sun's vision has evolved considerably over the past 6 months. Over the course of several meetings, starting this past spring, he initially pitched top administration officials, including Commerce Secretary Lutnick, right, on building a $1 trillion industrial city in the Arizona desert north of Phoenix. So if anyone is in Arizona, please let me know. Have you heard anything about this locally? Because you may get different news on this. So that was before there, and I think that might have been the Stargate thing. 1 trillion is what they were saying. So nowhere close to the Trump saying 22 trillion or whatever. But theoretically there could be. And then it's interesting that they actually mentioned it could be similar to Shenzhen in China. Now I actually used to live in Shenzhen. True story. And I actually write about Shenzhen in my book. It's a very, very interesting city, and you can do it. You can build a city centered around tech, build a whole new city. And I write about my book. There's a bunch of issues with this. I'll just say a couple that stand out in my mind. If you're going to do it in Arizona, you got power issues, water issues, and then worker issues. Like, where are you going to find all the people to be part of this big tech park supposedly? And you got to convince all these people to basically move out to the desert. Now, theoretically, you could do it if you build this really cool city that people want to, move in. I say theoretically, but it's going to take so much money to do that. And, then you have the other issues like, do we even have enough people that are trained? Because they're saying in the beginning that this is like Japanese skilled tech. So it's a lot of issues with this stuff. And then I would be giving to more of it though. The details Sun presented. And then check out my book, as I showed you guys. Details Sun presented were ambitious to the point of science fiction. It's kind of sound like Elon Musk in a way, right? To the president, Sun spun visions of robot-filled semiconductor fabrication plants. And when you look at that, it's like, okay, chances are there's not going to be that many jobs for humans if you say it this way. Chip packaging factories, processing plants, and housing for workers and managers, all in an area the size of Los Angeles, and like how many workers, right? And then again, not only you build the factories, you got to build all of this, along with housing. What about like hospitals, fire departments, schools? And I'd like to hear from people who again are in Arizona. Would you have the infrastructure for all of this new stuff to come in, or would you have to build everything fresh from scratch? I just want to hear, and you're doing this on federal land too. Sun discussed with officials the idea of making the Arizona project one of Trump's quote, freedom cities. Think of these names. So we have the Trump Industrial Park, Freedom Cities, and then was it the one, the Crystal City or something? Right. A concept for high-tech development on federal land floated during his 2024 presidential campaign. People familiar with the matter. At the time, the administration was considering issuance of executive order to try to push the Freedom Cities concept forward, but the momentum has slowed on that effort. And I think that's something that theoretically they probably wanted Trump to go out and promote, like domestically. I've heard reports where they were thinking about sending Trump on the road, for midterm stuff, but I don't think his health is there. So there's that. I mean, there's all these people are like, circling Trump to try to grab whatever government contracts you can, and that's essentially how this game is played. And so you come in and you present Trump with these kind of things. Let's see what more here. After those meetings, the blueprint for the project changed, and one of the mega development administration began pushing for a network of, quote, Trump industrial parks. That's a new one, according to an administrative official with manufacturing infrastructure built on federal land. Sun pitched a revised version of Project Crystal Land. I see. So that was the counter. So Trump's like, I want my name on it. Sun's like, okay, let's just call it Crystal Land. If given the choice, I'd rather go with, the Crystal. Might as well call it Lab at this point. Crystal Lab, you guys know what I'm talking about, versus the Trump Industrial Parks, but who knows. Futuristic robotics and housing were dropped, okay. And the first phase of the proposed project would be paid for using funds committed by the Japanese government as part of the trade deal. Yeah, if the money is even going to show up. So this is where, it gets sticky, because it's like, if you're going to do these things, where's the money? Japan also committed to investing $550 billion in the U.S. across strategic industries, including energy, semiconductor, manufacturing, and shipbuilding. Now, remember, these are just promises or pledges. And then some of the stuff, the same with Korea structured it, may be limited by per year basis. So they could say, hey, we'll give you 550 billion over 20 years. The Koreans are like, hey, we'll maximum 20 billion over 10 years. Some of this may just come in loan guarantees. Like there's a lot of the situations that are up in the air. The deal gives the U.S. the right to select where the money goes. So that's essentially Trump's like, okay, I want the money in that bank account, that bank account, that bank account, etc. And the U.S. would keep 90% of the profits on the project after Japan recoups its investment. So that's where it seems kind of like nonsense. A representative of Japan's government declined the comment. I just doubt anyone would ever go for this. So if you're going to do it, if you're going to partner, don't cheat people in that way. I think it's kind of crazy. Here's some more. It is far from clear if even the revised version of Sun's idea will become reality. So this is why we're reporting, because they're trying to hammer this stuff out, right? It would likely require enormous levels of funding beyond Japan's investment and approvals for using federal land, and far more planning to figure out the details of what all the factories would produce and who would build them. So government contracts flying around on building said things, right? Of course. SoftBank's involvement in another giant pledge by Sun, a $500 billion data center project with OpenAI announced in January, has yet to get off the ground. So I've heard this before, that they haven't started building on that thing yet, and then they were fighting over who's going to profit, who's going to take credit, and dealing with Sam Altman also, where they're restructuring their business thing. That was the code red, that was the OpenAI stuff, because essentially Google's beating them. So there's a massive bubble brewing here, and literally it says this here. Meanwhile, a spending spree on data centers hasn't seen a corresponding rise in income for AI companies, has raised worries among investors that a bubble is building in the AI infrastructure. If the USA is, focused, and Trump's focused on building all these things, and this goal is to basically replace you ultimately as a worker, and this is where we put our focus and resources are, and let's say it doesn't work, you're setting us up for major catastrophe. So, some of the stuff could be real, I keep saying, but you never know. It's mentioning Toshiba, Murata Manufacturing, and Fuji Kura. So some of these companies, may be involved, but, they're still working on stuff here. What else we got? It says, in the future, Sun has his sights set on building chip manufacturing plants known as foundries or fabs, which could compete with the companies in Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea that currently dominate the industry. It's been news here in Korea, too, that Koreans, and this would be the same in Taiwan, they obviously would want to compete as well. So don't think the USA is the only one in this game. But this was actually kind of interesting, though. It says, this year, Lutnick asked Taiwan Semi, which manufactures about 90% of the world's supply of AI chips, to expand its investments in the U.S., right? So they're already trying to get more, but I'm not sure if they're necessarily going to come, because it says right here, while SoftBank has approached TSMM, so that's Taiwan Semi, about them working on the Project Crystal Land, the Taiwanese company has indicated that it isn't interested. Literally, it says right there. So it's tough to do these things, right? What else we got? Sun sought to build bridges with the Trump even before he returned to the White House, standing by the president-elect in Mar-a-Lago last December. He pledged to spend $100 billion in the U.S. over 4 years. And this is how the reason I'm going over this stuff, because when you understand, like, say, someone like SoftBank or whoever goes to Mar-a-Lago, that's how you try to do business with Trump. You try to get all of these promises and government contracts, because some of the money, the government contract stuff, like, so for example, with NASA, where Elon Musk is getting his buddy to head NASA, I think it's the Eisenman guy, and there's just a lot of corruption around with government contracts. And then even when Eisenman was asked by a senator, was Elon Musk in the room when you were interviewing for the NASA job? And he's like, oh, there's a lot of people in the room moving around, and it's not a fair question. So the guy wouldn't answer yes or no if Elon Musk is there, right? So there's so much money involved with this stuff. And then at the moment, Lutnick is running around trying to put something together also. And there may also be some insider trader kind of stuff going on as well. Like, for example, this. In August, SoftBank invested $2 billion in Intel just before the U.S. government took a 10% stake in the struggling American chip company, right? You can see how the game is played. It's all public. Lutnick has been working closely with SoftBank along with others in the administration, officials in the Interior Department about the potential use of federal land. And so then you got to go through all that. And I keep hearing from the Trump people, whenever you tune into what they're saying, they always complain about regulations. Oh, I hate regulations. We got to unleash the power of AI. And this is what they're talking about. They want to build these, now we're calling it Trump industrial parks faster, I guess. And it could end up being if you guys are ever familiar with construction projects, sometimes you'll start building these things and never finish, and that's actually the worst outcome. If you're going to build something, at least finish it, at least get something going there. But if you like halfway build something and then the next administration comes in and you're just like, okay, do we finish this? Do we not finish this? We already dumped money on this thing. We're losing money on said thing. What do we do? So I think that could be an absolute nightmare and very, very terrible for the U.S. That's my thoughts on this. I want to hear yours, and I'll catch you on the next video.